And now I'm going to pass it over to Jordan to talk about the community survey results. So more exciting stuff.
Hello, everyone. So as most of you know, we offered a survey in late 2021 and promised to share the results with you. And this was enormously helpful and has already started to guide our development. So just a note on how we analyzed the results for Aspen Discovery, you were given, or we ended up with 11 different areas of development that we could focus on. Some of those we provided, and then at another one of these Aspen gatherings, we added some more. So there were 11 in total. For every vote that was, or every priority that was won, we gave it 11 points. 2, we gave it 10 points. You can extrapolate that down. And these are the results that we got. This was surprising to us and revealed really why we should do this type of work, why we should be talking to you, and why we should do these kinds of surveys, because the top 2 areas where you are requesting updates were facet enhancements and grouped works. Now, these weren't things even on offer at that Aspen gathering. These are areas that you added during the Aspen gathering. So this was not on our radar as much as kind of the bigger, flashier things like the placard enhancements and the shared infrastructure that we've been talking about. But what we know right now is before we go to those things, we need to work on the facet enhancements and grouped works. Within our ticketing system, we do categorize things. It makes it easy for us to pull out similar tickets and work on similar things. As long as Mark's or Kirsten is in one area of the code, maybe we can fix a few other things. All of our facet tickets were grouped in with searching. So there wasn't a way just to look at the facet tickets. So I actually went through all of our searching tickets and pulled out all of the facet tickets. And then as long as I was in there, I kind of did a categorization of the searching tickets that were left, since searching is often related to both facets and grouped works. So as you can see here, facets came out on top, easily on top, as far as the #1 area of searching that you were looking for improvements. And then I just thought I'd go ahead and share kind of the breakdown of the other things that we saw in searching. And you can see Mark was actually working on a couple of these different areas in the demo or the updates that he just shared. So special characters, authorities, relevancy, series and volumes are really different things. It made sense with what was in those tickets to group them here. These are the top ones, and we'll be starting to kind of look at these areas too. I also wanted to note that grouped work tickets, which were originally tracked separately, they kind of had their own category, had 51 tickets. I also wanted to say that this looks like a large number of tickets, but a single ticket frequently has more than one category on it. So this gives us an idea of where we can start to look for your top priorities based on where you're putting in a lot of tickets. We also have some time reserved later to have a conversation, because the data that you submitted is one thing, but then talking about it can also maybe reveal some additional things. We also asked you questions about your priorities for LIDA, the Aspen app. I do want to say that according to our roadmap and other feedback that we've gotten from you, we are still going to be working on making LIDA available for a single library first. What that means is that instead of your patrons having to search for LIDA within the app stores, they'll be able to search for your library name, and we know that that's preferable. The unlibrary branded LIDA app, though, I do want to say the one that's just the group LIDA app will always be free for Aspen. But here are the areas that you ranked top. Filtering and facets and holds parity were the top 2, and this makes sense because we want our patrons to be able to do everything in the app that they can do in Aspen Discovery, especially related to their account and finding materials. And then app notifications, this is kind of what we were thinking would come out on top as far as app functionality, and that was correct. And then you can kind of see the others going down. This last one is ratings and reviews, or different browse categories in the app versus the desktop. Okay, so that's just a quick summary. And now let's go ahead and look at how the survey results are actually impacting what we are planning for our roadmap. So the first thing I want to show you is our plan for 22.01. I know we've been talking about tools. I know we've been talking about wanting to be able to share the roadmap. The tools are just going to take us a while. So I decided to go ahead and take some screenshots of the roadmap in here. I'll be making this PowerPoint available to you afterwards, so that you can kind of keep track of our roadmap and at least have a copy of how things are changing. But this was our plan for 22.01. I have a couple of notes on the side. Mark talked to you about the pages that are restricted by IP. Frequently, we get bonus features as we're working in one area of the code or as we have a special request from other libraries. Lots of times we'll get bonus stuff. Sometimes it doesn't appear on the roadmap. We just consider that bonus. So I just kind of wanted to make that side note that this is a guide and not a specific plan. We did have a couple of things that got bumped out a little bit due to some illnesses and outages over the holidays. The searchable help documentation is something that got moved to the next release, as well as Hoopla Binge Pass. We've been getting the notifications from Hoopla about this, but nobody's really reached out to us to say it's a priority. If this is something you're really, really looking for and definitely want to see it in the next release, reach out and let us know. Otherwise, that's kind of like the low-hanging fruit to kind of push down the line, unless somebody says, yes, 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 we please want that. Planning, the other thing that we kind of moved out, the planning for sharing the Aspen template and content was postponed because from the looking at all of the data that we just went over with the survey, we knew that we needed to start focusing on the areas of facets, searching, and record grouping. So we're going to go ahead and take that direction that you all gave us and look at those areas first. So moving on to just our plans for the next 2 releases. Right now for Aspen 22.02, we have the Evergreen Implementation Part 2. Of course, Mark didn't mention this, but he did get some work done on a whole new ILS implementation coming, which should be done by the end of the next release. So our big focus for this next release is going to be finishing up that Evergreen work. As time allows, we're going to start after that work focusing on the facet updates and fixes. We're going to start looking specifically at facet bugs first. Again, this is going to be as time allows. Our priority is definitely going to be Evergreen. If you look over here, you can see a couple of other things in here. Planning for e-commerce additions and enhancements. We know we wanted that to come later. So you're not going to see any coding there, but we'll be organizing the work that we know we need to do. The searchable help documentation we mentioned moving down. Koha has a new release, 21.11, that's coming out, and we'll be working with our Koha team over here to make sure that everything is smooth for the integration of those 2 things. And then we already talked about Hoopla. Coming after that, we bumped to libcal a little bit to make room for those facet updates and fixes. And these really get into the guts of Aspen. So we're going to kind of give ourselves, we want to get these right. We want the facets to be good. So we bumped the libcal integration. We are planning on having continued work on the facet updates and fixes. And then we're hopeful that we'll be able to start working on some additional e-content integrations. If you have high priority to your library tickets related to facets, related to searching, or related to record grouping, we're going to talk about it in a little bit. But also, if you just have a specific one, you have your ticket in and you've been just waiting for us to get to it, just let us know. Let me know. You can message me in Slack. You can email me. You can comment on the ticket. Any of that will let us know that this is one of the top few priorities for your library. Oh, sorry. One too far. Okay, last update from me. We have been doing a lot of work. At the end of November, we recognized that we really wanted to start building more around the Aspen International Support Organizations. They need to learn more about Aspen. We have opportunities to get even more features for all of you as we build a stronger international Aspen community. So we started to meet regularly so that we can collaborate on development, we can collaborate on ideas, and we can have a little bit of our own separate, I don't want to call it a roadmap, but it's more of these are the things that as a group we want to work on together, and that group kind of made these decisions together. So just a call out for the 4 participating organizations. There's KnowledgeWare Technologies in Saudi Arabia, PTFS Europe, and Techie Solutions in Argentina. And then of course, Bywater is also one of those 4. During our first community priority development conversation or development priority conversation, the community really talked about wanting the EBSCOhost integration. A lot of these organizations also support academic libraries, and EBSCOhost is really big internationally. And this is great for us because even though EBSCOhost integration, we asked you about that on the survey, it was kind of on the lower half of the things that were prioritized. But because it's important internationally, we might be able to get that integration for those libraries where maybe there weren't enough of them for it to be the top priority, but it is important to them. We will still be able to get that, and we'll be able to leverage really the work of Aspen around the world. Other interests or other priorities that came up were Koha to Koha ILL. So if you have two separate Koha Kohas that want to use ILL, there is a Koha ILL plugin, and we're going to be looking at an Aspen integration for that. Also, integration with more events platforms. We'll be doing LibCal on our side, and then, of course, internationally, they have their own events platforms. So maybe we can collaborate or work towards doing additional events integrations together. And they, as Mark works on, or as Kirsten works on that LibCal integration, others can be kind of learning about how that works and integrating their own local events platforms. And then finally, Folio is also another integration point that the community is interested in. And with that, I'm going to stop talking and hand it back to Morgan.
All right, thank you. Okay, so yeah, that was, thank you so much for all those awesome updates. We, like, as Jordan has mentioned, we have been busy, and we really, I'm glad that we did that survey feedback from the community, because it's really cool to see what is on everyone's top priorities. So thank you again for everyone who participated. I'm going to turn it over to Cal now, because she has some Aspen Weekly stuff to talk about.
Hey everyone, I just wanted to make my Once a Gathering plug that if anyone is interested in authoring or even just like submitting a segment for Aspen Weekly, we work on these every week, and we have some ideas of things that we think you want to read and learn about, but we want to turn it over to the community, of course. So these are just some things that we put together. Like if you have any content around like accessibility or usability, or maybe you could share some like staff training and resources that you guys put together for Aspen internally that you could share out to the rest of the community. Or even if you just want to do a show and tell of something that you created or made in your own voice and not in our voice, we'd always love for you to participate and author some of that or guest author some of it. So you can email me, you can post in Slack, reach out, but we would really appreciate your voice just anytime throughout 2022. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, and like, don't think that you have to write a whole, essay, because like, I mean, when I write these, I get flashbacks to like grad school and like having to write and everything. So even if it's just like a little section or blurb or something, like, we just would love any participation, anything that you want to share. So it's all good. Thank you, Cal. Let's talk now about the next community meeting. So that is going to be on January 18th. Yes. So if you don't have the links to the calendars, let us know and we can, oh, Cal, I think she's going to drop the links to the calendars in the chat. So that way you can keep informed about upcoming gatherings. It also has the release schedules on it. So that way you can keep, really informed, stay on top of when our releases are coming out, when you need to start testing things, et cetera, et cetera. So who's the point person for the next community? Oh, Tara. Okay. Go for it, Tara.
I think Sam and I were somehow appointed to point people, but yeah, I think just I know Sam, if you have a mic, or I know you're here, posted a message in Slack. It's actually under the Aspen Gathering channel, but yeah, so if you have some agenda topics and things to add, we can start collecting those, and we're working on maybe a more permanent repository to add to add our future agendas and working documents and all that good stuff. And yes, I think one agenda item I will add is if we want to start our own Aspen community Slack channel, if that's something we'd like to do, or if there's some other way that y'all would like to communicate in between our bi-monthly meetings. Anything to add, Sam?
Not right now. We're going through start of the year stuff, and honestly haven't put a lot of time and thought into this, except for interested to see all the cool side loads and things like that that people have been doing. If anyone's been making use of things like the Project Gutenberg APIs, just kind of what other things people are doing with Aspen that's kind of cool and maybe somewhat out of the ordinary. And if you've done that, if you're willing to stand up in some of these community meetings and maybe um, walk us through the process, how you did it, how you solved some problems. Um, One of the things that's great and wonderful and also a little difficult with Aspen is the speed of production means that by the time we've got an awesome video made, we're 6 releases ahead of that, and there's new, better, cool options. But we really need everyone helping out with this kind of documentation. And if there's pitfalls like, hey, you can do this cool, awesome side load, but make sure you have permissions, or whatever those kinds of things are. That's what I got.
So just to recap, and correct me if I say anything wrong. If you want to participate in the community gathering, so that's just all of you getting together, talking about things that are important to you, demoing things, helping each other out. That is on January 18th. Cal has posted the calendar links in the chat for your time zone. And you can hop on our Slack channel. If you're not already a part of it, you should be, because it's a great way to get access to the Aspen team at Bywater and each other. I see people helping each other in that channel all the time, so it's amazing. And they are talking about the community gathering in the Aspen Gathering channel. So if you're not registered into that channel, just hit the Add Channels button, and then you should be able to find it. Or you can ask us for help in the Slack channel too. So
posted a link straight to Sam's thread in Slack. It's where you can post your agenda ideas.
It's perfect. Thank you, Tara. And Ed says, I am up for anything that brings members of the community to the table to assist in the growth of Aspen. Yes, Ed, we believe that too. So please participate, make Aspen better. You guys are awesome and your ideas are awesome. So, okay. Any other questions about the community meeting? Okay. Must be good there. Okay, so I am going to then pass it over to Jordan for a discussion on search and facets.
Sure. So I prepared a couple of different questions around what we might want to do with facets, grouped works, and searching. So yeah, I thought I'd just go ahead and start that conversation. So as far as thinking about you as librarians, so I'm going to ask this question twice, one for librarians and one for patrons. What are the top things as librarians you wish Aspen did or that it didn't do as far as searching for materials, how that's basically how you identify what you need in Aspen. And another way of thinking about this is maybe what annoys staff the most. And I'm sure nothing, but no, what do you maybe hear about from your staff with Aspen?
This searching specifically, right? Searching and facets.
Searching, facets, grouped work. It's really about identifying materials. So where do they get stuck? What doesn't make sense to them? Yeah, or why did facets come up as the top thing in our survey is really the question we're trying to answer.
This is Chanel. Wondered why I had no. There we go. One of the things that comes up for us, and I don't know how problematic this is with other library systems, but because we're a consortium with independent catalogers and independent libraries, we have a lot of times where one bib record will have items on it that are categorized differently between libraries. So like Harry Potter, for example, might be considered YA at one library, but is considered child at another library. Or there might be book, right? We use our own item type or our format categories. So there might be book regular print and book paperback, both on the same bib record. And the way this displays in Aspen is the libraries are not happy with it. We're doing our best to clean up that data on our end, but I think it's going to be an ongoing problem for us just because of the fact you just can't get, catalogers are cats, total cats. You can't hurt them.
So are you wanting to customize what they see for those records by library? So kind of choose whether it shows as YA or children's for that Harry Potter example, or did you want it to show as both, or have that be the choice of the library?
I can't say that I know exactly what the answer is to that question. What I can say is that it needs to be more graceful than what it is now.
Okay.
I would also bring up a second thing that involves facets, which is that it's not that difficult to come up with a facet combination that doesn't actually give you results that fit the combination you requested. So, so if you're wanting all the books at library A that are book paperback that are for adults, it's possible that you might get paperbacks that match that are from a different library. No, but that library A doesn't have any. I think I got that right. But you can come up with these combinations that produce results that a human cannot explain why those things came back.
That makes sense. And that reflects what I've seen in a couple tickets lately with facets, where if you're looking between two facets, it's always an or. So an example that I saw recently was us wanting a certain format in a certain language, and it will return the language, everything that's in French and everything that's an audiobook, but it doesn't mean that we have the audiobook in French.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
We definitely explain that a lot on repeat to libraries, that the kind of between facets is an or search. And something I would say, I know we're talking about what annoys staff, but there's also this sort of what gets things in front of patrons' eyeballs and helps them find things. And I am not sure that there's, there might be, if we swing that balance and kind of have an and search that's really specific, it's looking at the library's item type. For example, if you apply that library facet, that could end up being a bad thing. So I think that, that could be something interesting to, even for the community to look at and test.
I just off the top of my head, someone might be able to come up with, good exceptions, but off the top of my head, my natural instinct is that it's an or within a facet, and it's an and if it's between facets. So when I pick French and paperback and a Abaya Judd library, I want the thing that is those three things put together. What's the 5 items that meets that criteria?
That makes sense. And with Aspen, Mark, correct me if I get this wrong, but within an individual facet, you have the option for each facet to decide whether it's an and or for the terms within a single facet. What's caused issues is the always oring between the facet groups.
Yeah.
And it is technically still an and. The problem is that since we've got multiple records grouped together, it matches for the grouped work. So it is French, and there is a book, but that does not mean that there is a French book.
Right.
Which is one of the few downsides of record grouping, is figuring out that what you're looking for then is actually the addition within the grouped work. And I think it's probably the confusion is exacerbated by we hide the non-relevant results with a non-relevant format. So if you hide book and you hide anything that's not French, you wind up with what appears to be no results, even though it's doing both. So it's saying anything where the addition within the work is French or a book, but the actual work itself does have both French and books. So it's goofy. And the trick on it, and it sounds like it's something that we need to figure out how to address, and my brain's been working behind the scenes trying to figure it out. It's how to do it without having a ton of extra data, which is just tricky. Because anytime we combine facets like that, it leads to a bunch of redundant information in the Solr. But yeah, it's something we need to figure out. And it's going to be a difficult problem to solve, but it'll be fun and good once we get it.
Other things, and from either the patron or the library staff, I just like to differentiate those two to remind all of us that they're different. Related to facets, grouped work, or searching.
I'll throw one into the hat. Just something I get reported on again a lot from our libraries is and I think partly it's because our current catalog, the title is boosted, a title match, an exact title match is boosted extremely high in Solr relevancy. So I was going to compile my mega list of examples that I've been sent and put this in a ticket. But I think especially when indexing, doing like a title search, a title index search or a title limited search, they really expect that exact title match to be kind of higher in the rankings. And sometimes like popular titles will be much higher than like an exact title search. So something to throw out there, and I'll definitely send examples unless people have them ready to go right now. But
yeah, I would say I am getting responses from staff about that as well.
Great, good to know. Within the next week or so too, just as long as Tara's mentioning putting in tickets, please go ahead and add these. And it'd be nice if you even commented like, oh, coming up from the Aspen Gathering conversation. That way we know where kind of that comment is coming from, and we can make sure to kind of group it in with all of what we're looking at for upcoming releases.
I've got another one. You just can't stop me. We run into cases where patrons just cannot seem to spell things right. And so to have a synonym list that we can add to would be an awesome thing, because right now we're doing the transition from Enterprise to Aspen, and we're getting these patrons that are like, this James Patterson titles, I could get them so easily in your old catalog, and the new catalog says there's none. And and I'm like, well, because you're spelling his name wrong. But I could help smooth out that issue by being able to add it to a synonym list.
Okay, good suggestion. I want to make sure we have time for the other conversation topic we had, but I'll leave you with one more question, and if we have time to talk about it, great, and if not, again, shoot me an email, put in a ticket. Have you seen a search feature anywhere else other than Aspen that you really liked? You saw how it worked, like, oh, I wish the library worked this way. So even especially think of like shopping websites. It can be another library's discovery. We're not opposed to doing anything that works well for our patrons. But what's something that you've seen that you wish you could have just magically added to the library catalog?
I've got one: natural language searching. So being able to say new French books, and Aspen magically understands that was, I don't even know how this works, but I know other catalogs do it, is able to pull up those French books that have been recently added.
We did have a couple of tickets on that I called that smart search. And it also frequently comes up with formats, with things like ebooks, or Kindle is one that was really big for a while. You don't want books about how to use a Kindle. You want books that are in the Kindle format. Other beautiful features that you just wish we could plop right into Aspen? Okay, well then I will hand it back to Morgan for our next conversation.
All right, this is going to be a fun one. So some of you may have seen the conversation in Slack earlier in September, and I'll link it in the chat as well if you want to catch up on that conversation. But basically, there was an issue with bad word filtering in Aspen, where we realized that it had been filtering. Correctly, it was supposed to be filtering out any descriptions put on lists as well, because anywhere that could potentially be public, we wanted to kind of head that off and filter out any really bad stuff. Not that I don't think people are really being that nefarious with their list descriptions or their reviews. Not that I've heard yet, but we still have that safeguard in place. However, as Mark had linked to the GitHub page with the definitive list of the bad words that get filtered, and Jonathan Newton had noticed that there are some words in that list that actually might not even need to be in there, just depending on the context. For example, like I think murder was the word that was getting filtered out of a list description. So like murder mysteries, that's a pretty common thing, for Reader's Advisory at a library. And I think some other words were identified as well. So I guess as far as the bad word list, we wanted thoughts like, do we want to come up with a list of words that should not be filtered ever? Or do we want to try and approach where if a certain amount hit, like, what was your idea, Mark? Like
if we
like
wanted to do something that said like, hey, if 50% of it or 10% is bad words, or if you get at least 3 bad words, then don't then assume that it's bad. But we'd probably need some ranking then to say like murder is only a minorly bad word. Some of these other words we don't want in there.
Yeah.
So we could like subdivide it into 2 lists where it's like, yeah, this is mostly okay, or it's only bad on context.
Yeah, a lot of them seem to be context dependent, like murder. If someone was making a death threat toward, the public, that would be bad. But if they're just talking about murder mysteries, it's not bad at all. So I don't know how some of those would you even determine that, but that would be challenging.
We'd be interested in just if we could toggle it off entirely. Partly because we don't have user comments enabled, but so at this point we're only filtering out staff comments, and they're like, why is the word queer considered a bad word?
Yeah, I think like if you could have some sort of staff bypass for staff created content to automatically bypass that would probably be good.
I like that idea. So either turn it off for everybody or turn it off for some people. We could potentially make that list editable. So if you feel like going through and editing your own list of words, you could, whether that's adding to or subtracting. But yeah, especially if you don't have any real user comments. So the places that it gets used are reviews. You can enter notes in a public list, and descriptions in lists, as well as list titles. So those are the areas I know of that are of potential concern. Again, like we just don't have a lot of people that enter bad things because they are all tied to your user name. So
is there any kind of like moderation or approval possibilities too? Like say, don't show it unless it's, this comment has been explicitly approved, or thinking like with our WordPress site, we have like a comment moderation option for every comment before it shows up publicly.
Yeah, we could probably look into something like that, or run it through this list and then say, if it matches anything in this list, then flag it for review, unless it's from a staff person.
Yeah. Does anyone out there, I guess, so that list has been active the whole time, so no one has had the option not to have them. So I'm just wondering if anyone had any experience with like letting everything go through, and if they actually have instances of inappropriate content making it onto the site.
We did update this list for, I think it was 2214.
Right.
So yeah, we have seen increased filtering that we didn't have before. And that might be part of the issue as well, is like, so basically, yeah, before people were working essentially without a bad word list. And I think there just weren't problems before. So maybe letting people either edit it or disable it may be what we want to do.
Can someone refresh my memory how this manifests itself? Like in user space, like someone types a comment with a bad word, what happens?
So for the patron themselves, they see it as is. For everybody else, sorry, I'm trying to get myself out of. For everybody else, there's two options. You can either have it censor the word. So if murder was one of the things, it would say *** in the building. Instead of, and then the other option would be to completely hide that. So if a comment said this is similar to only murders in the building, then you would just not see that comment.
Okay.
This is
I was going to say,
because *** in the building. So
yeah, okay. I mean, that's what I see in other spaces, like in
Yeah.
commercial spaces, is if the word is on the ban list, it doesn't appear, right? And you as the user don't know that until you hit post or send or whatever.
Yeah, and in either case, for the patron who entered it, because language is what might be bad to you is not bad to me, and vice versa. Or what's offensive to me is not offensive to you, and vice versa. Like, it always shows the original to me if I'm logged in. So if I use a word that I don't find offensive, then I just see it. So, which also helps prevent people from getting more creative on how to try to spell things.
Yeah, so I just pasted the example. That's where we found it, was on a staff curated list. The title of the list is Sleigh Bells, SLAY. So it's a play on words there. And then the description is the holidays can be ****. I guess that's a period, literally. So it meant to be the holidays can be murder, literally, but that got censored and we didn't realize that was happening, or we didn't know that was going to happen. So that's what brought our attention to it. But that's how you can see it in action by looking at that list.
I mean, I don't want to be Captain Obvious here, but it sounds like what we want is the ability to customize what words we want to censor, right?
Yeah. Or completely disable.
Or completely disable, yes. Yes, there is a part of me that's like, I don't think there should be a censored words list, but yeah, that too.
Does that work for everybody?
Would that, I mean, would the turning it off entirely have the option to do it, turn it off for staff content or turn it off for everybody, for both? I would feel pretty confident turning it off for staff generated content if that's possible, versus turning it off for everybody. I think in our case, I don't even know if we have public comments even turned on. So, I mean, public lists are not public in the catalog, except for staff.
Okay. We can talk through what that would take to do.
So just as it sounds like there's, yeah, we might need to edit down the bad words list a little bit to get rid of some of the more obvious things that might not always be bad. And then yeah, the ability to disable it for staff and possibly the ability to edit the list for library.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you for your ideas. We appreciate them. All right. Gosh, we are right at 3 o'clock. Do you still want to do a quick demo for anyone who wants to hang out for a couple minutes or?
Sure.
Okay. So Mark wanted to do a quick demo of the curbside function in Aspen. Just really quick for anyone who wants to hang out.
Got this earlier. Oh wait, let me see if it's gonna let me in. I might not be able to. Hold on. Give me 1 sec, and then maybe false alarm. We will demo it. So we added support for the curbside plugin that is within Koha, and the patron that we have it connected to, somehow the login information changed, so I can't demo it. So for the next release, we added support for the curbside plugin. If anybody is using it for Koha, basically from your checked out titles, it gives you the option to schedule a curbside pickup for anything that you have checked out at the locations where those materials are ready for hold. If you're interested in using it, let us know and we can help you get it set up. But it does require the Koha curbside plugin. So not so much a demo as a discussion. So that's it.
Well, that concludes our Aspen gathering. So thank you again for showing up today. There's lots of exciting stuff to test out and try out. If you have any questions about anything we talked about, just reach out to us. We're always on Slack. We're always checking the tickets. So have a great January, everybody. Happy New Year.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.